2,500 years ago, one man sat beneath a tree and quietly changed the course of human history. But what actually happened that night? Did Siddhartha Gautama unlock mystical superpowers? Did he gain the ability to see the future? Or was his discovery something far more surprising? The truth about enlightenment might just upend everything you think you know. And if you think enlightenment means becoming some serene being floating above the chaos of life, well, think again. Hey friends, Matt here from Buddha's Wisdom. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into one of the biggest mysteries in all of Buddhism, enlightenment. It's what Siddhartha Gautama, later known as the Buddha, discovered beneath the Bodhi tree. It's what monks dedicate their entire lives to seeking. And chances are, it's nothing like you've ever imagined. Now, if you've already seen our video on the Four Noble Truths, you know the basics of what Buddha taught. But today, we're going deeper. We're exploring what really happens when someone wakes up to the nature of reality. Is enlightenment some kind of magical state where you transcend human problems? Is it something only ancient monks could achieve? Or is it actually much closer than you think? As Zen Master Dogen once said, if you cannot find the truth right where you are, where else do you expect to find it? That's our first clue. So, whether you're on your favorite meditation cushion, sitting in a chair, or listening while you go about your day, get comfortable, because we're about to unpack what enlightenment really is, and why those who claim to have it probably don't. Let's get started. Picture this. A man sits quietly under a massive fig tree. He's been meditating for days. He's hungry, exhausted, but he is determined to find the root cause of human suffering. And this isn't just any man. This is Siddhartha Gautama, a former prince who walked away from a life of luxury, from family, wealth, and comfort, all in pursuit of one question: why do humans suffer? As night falls, Siddhartha faces the deepest parts of his own mind. Buddhist tradition tells us that during this night he confronted Mara, the embodiment of temptation and distraction. Memories surfaced, desires arose, but Siddhartha remained steady in his meditation, simply observing each thought, not clinging, not resisting. The Pali Canon, one of the earliest collections of Buddhist teachings, describes something profound happening that night. Through deep concentration, Siddhartha experienced three powerful insights. First, he saw his countless past lives. Second, he came to understand the endless cycle of rebirth that all beings experience. And third, he grasped the Four Noble Truths: the nature of suffering, its cause, its end, and the path leading to its end. When the morning star rose in the sky, Siddhartha's understanding was complete. In his own words, recorded in the Dhammapada, "Through many births I wandered, seeking the builder of this house. Painful is repeated birth. House builder, you are seen. You shall build no house again. All your rafters are broken, your ridgepoles shattered. My mind has attained the unconditioned. Achieved is the end of craving." But here's what's fascinating. What didn't change? The Buddha didn't suddenly become superhuman. He still experienced pain. He still aged. He still had bodily needs. What transformed was his relationship to experience itself. He no longer generated suffering around these natural processes. As the respected monk Thanissaro Bhikkhu explains, Buddha's awakening wasn't some grand cosmic knowledge of the universe. Rather, it was a profound shift in how he experienced life. He saw how suffering arises and how it ceases, not through theory, but through direct experience. This awakening naturally led to compassion. The Buddha didn't retreat into isolation after his realization. Instead, he spent the next 45 years teaching others the path he discovered. And that first teaching, given at Deer Park, wasn't about magical powers or mystical visions. It was about something much more practical, a path to end suffering. Now let's talk about what most people think enlightenment looks like. For many, the image is a glowing guru on a mountaintop, always peaceful, never angry, floating above life's problems, maybe even reading minds. But here's the shocking truth. That's not enlightenment at all. Throughout history, real Buddhist masters have described awakening in very different terms. For example, Zen master Kyowan once explained, "Before I studied Zen, mountains were mountains and waters were waters. When I learned Zen, mountains were no longer mountains and waters were no longer waters. But now, mountains are once again mountains and waters are once again waters." What does this mean? It means enlightenment isn't about seeing something otherworldly. It's about seeing ordinary reality without distortion. Here's what's even more surprising. Many masters admit that awakening is initially disappointing. Yes, disappointing. The 13th century Zen master Dogen wrote that enlightenment can feel like the most ordinary thing in the world. You expect cosmic fireworks, and instead, it's just another Tuesday morning. The 9th century master Lindsay went even further. If you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. Of course, he wasn't promoting violence. He was warning us not to cling to any idea of enlightenment. Even the idea of becoming enlightened can become another obstacle. Here's one of my favorite Zen stories. A monk asked Master Chazhou, "What is enlightenment?" Chazhou replied, "Have you eaten your rice porridge?" The monk said, "Yes." And Chazhou answered, "Then wash your bowl." That's it. No cosmic philosophy, no mystical revelation, just washing your bowl, being completely present with the simplest, most ordinary activity. Even the Buddha himself pushed back against mystical thinking. In the Kalama Sutta, he said, "Do not believe something simply because it's tradition. Do not believe something just because I said so. Test everything against your own experience." He wasn't asking for blind faith. He wasn't promising magical transformations. In fact, the most awakened teachers often seem, well, disappointingly normal. They still get hungry. They still get tired. They still laugh at jokes. As 20th century Zen master Shunryu Suzuki put it, "If you think you're enlightened, that's a sure sign you're not. True awakening comes with humility, not grandiosity." In one of our earlier videos about common Buddhist myths, we talked about the many misconceptions that surround Buddhist practice. But this idea of enlightenment might be the biggest myth of all. Enlightenment isn't some badge of honor that makes you special. It's not about gaining mystical powers or separating yourself from the world. In fact, it's the opposite. It's the simple recognition that you are never separate to begin with. It's not about adding something new. It's about removing the illusions that cloud your natural awareness. The Thai forest monk Ajahn Chah said it beautifully. "Looking for peace is like looking for a turtle with a mustache. You won't find it. But when your heart is ready, peace will come looking for you." That's the shocking truth about enlightenment. It's not how extraordinary it is, but how extraordinarily ordinary it is. And here's where things get really interesting. There's a kind of paradox at the heart of spiritual practice. The more you chase enlightenment, the more it slips away. It's what I like to call the enlightenment trap.
Think about it. You start meditating to find peace. But then you're constantly wondering, am I enlightened yet? Was that it? Is this progress? You turn your practice into just another achievement for your ego, another way to feel special. But enlightenment isn't something your ego can possess. In fact, it's the dropping away of ego identification itself. This connects directly to one of the Buddha's most profound insights, Anatta, or non-self. The Buddha taught that what we think of as the self isn't some permanent entity. It's a process, a flowing, ever-changing collection of experiences, thoughts, perceptions, and feelings. Enlightenment isn't about losing your identity. It's about seeing it clearly for what it truly is, open, interconnected, and constantly changing. As the Mahayana Sutras say, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. This isn't just abstract philosophy. It's liberation from the prison of a fixed identity. No wonder the Buddha described awakening as breaking free from chains. I've seen this firsthand on meditation retreats. People compete over who can sit the longest, who has the deepest insights, who can be the most spiritual. One person has a blissful experience and thinks, I've got it. Another has a vision and believes, I'm chosen. But true awakening can't be captured like this. You can't own it, you can't win it. The 13th century master Dogen warned about this very thing. To study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. But how many of us are truly trying to forget the self? Most of us are trying to improve the self, to become a better, more spiritual version of the person we already think we are. And this trap gets even more dangerous when teachers and gurus fall into it. History is full of self-proclaimed enlightened masters who use their status to manipulate their followers. They claimed special powers, demanded obedience, even abused trust. But remember the Buddha's caution in the Kalama Sutta. Don't believe something because of reports, legends, tradition, scripture, logical reasoning, or even because someone is your teacher. Test it for yourself. This dark side of the Enlightenment trap is what modern psychologists now call spiritual bypassing. Using spiritual ideas to avoid dealing with real-world problems. You've probably heard it. I'm so enlightened, I don't need to address my harmful behavior. Or, it's all just emptiness, so my actions don't really matter. This completely misses the point. True awakening increases responsibility, not decreases it.
It makes you more ethical, more compassionate, not less. One simple truth to remember. Those who claim enlightenment the loudest are usually the furthest from it. As the Tao Te Ching says, those who know do not speak. Those who speak do not know. The moment you think, I am enlightened, you've already fallen into the trap. And in today's modern culture, this trap is everywhere. We've turned enlightenment into another product, another experience to collect. You see it in retreats that promise enlightenment in a weekend. You see it in apps claiming to deliver ancient wisdom in 5 easy steps. But true practice isn't about accumulating experiences. It's about seeing through the very desire for special experiences. And when this romanticized version of enlightenment leads to spiritual bypassing, that's when it becomes truly harmful. I've witnessed meditators dismissing real-world suffering with phrases like, it's all just an illusion, or everything is perfect, so I don't need to care. But that's not what the Buddha taught. He didn't say awakening means escaping reality. Quite the opposite. It means facing reality more directly, with greater clarity and greater compassion.
So what does enlightenment actually look like in today's world? Interestingly, scientists have been studying this question for decades. They've put advanced meditators and Buddhist monks into brain scanners. And the results? Pretty fascinating. These long-term practitioners show increased gamma brain waves, more activity in the prefrontal cortex, less reactivity in the amygdala, reduced activity in the default mode network, the part of the brain linked to self-referential thinking. In other words, yes, their brains do physically change. But here's a funny story from one retreat I attended. On day 5, one person had what they thought was a profound awakening experience. They were practically glowing, floating on air. Then, at lunch, someone took the last dessert they wanted. Instant rage. And that's the thing. This isn't a failure of practice. That is the practice. Seeing how quickly we go from Buddha to Hulk, that's the whole point of awareness. As one teacher joked, enlightenment isn't when you stop getting angry about traffic. It's when you notice yourself getting angry and maybe laugh at yourself a little. But here's the big question. Can a brain scan detect enlightenment? Can science measure awakening? Most researchers now believe not exactly. As Richard Davidson puts it, we can measure the correlates of meditation, but consciousness itself remains a mystery. The finger pointing at the moon is not the moon itself.
And what's even more interesting is how enlightenment actually shows up in everyday people. You don't need to be a monk in a monastery. A parent changing diapers can be just as awakened as someone meditating in a cave. A programmer writing code, a teacher guiding students, a nurse caring for patients. Anyone can embody awakening in the simple moments of life. I spoke with several teachers while preparing this video, and they all said the same thing. Enlightenment isn't about escaping your life. It's about being fully present within it. An awakened mind brings clarity and compassion to everything it touches. Relationships, work, creativity, even struggle. Think about everyday situations. How might an enlightened person handle getting cut off in traffic? They might feel a flash of anger, but they wouldn't get consumed by it. How would they face illness? They'd meet the pain directly, without adding extra layers of suffering through resistance or fear. How would they approach success? With appreciation, but without clinging or grasping. As one teacher put it, enlightenment isn't locked away in a monastery. It's revealed in how you treat others, in your patience during stress, in your presence in each moment. It's worth remembering Buddha himself wasn't removed from the world. He traveled, he taught, he resolved conflicts. He was constantly engaged with society. And what's fascinating is how the idea of enlightenment has evolved across cultures. In traditional Eastern contexts, awakening is often seen as realizing what's already present, your innate Buddha nature. It's about removing the obstacles to what is already natural. But when these teachings came west, they often merged with our achievement-oriented mindset. Western seekers frequently approach enlightenment as something to gain or accomplish. Psychology professor Jack Kornfield calls this the spiritual materialism of the West. Neither approach is entirely wrong, but the traditional Eastern view might help us save us from turning enlightenment into just another item on our spiritual shopping list. As Vietnamese Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh said, "We are here to awaken from the illusion of our separateness, not to acquire something we lack." Modern manifestations of enlightenment are actually very practical. You notice it in people's actions more than their words. You notice it in their consistent kindness, in their ability to stay grounded under pressure, in their clarity of perception without being swept away by emotions. These qualities don't make for flashy Instagram posts, but they're far more valuable. Now this brings us to one of Buddhism's most beautiful teachings, the Bodhisattva path. A Bodhisattva is someone who could attain full enlightenment and liberation, but makes a radical choice. They vow to remain in the cycle of rebirth to help all beings end their suffering. It's the ultimate act of compassion. As we explored in our video on Bodhisattvas, this ideal transforms the entire view of enlightenment. Instead of seeking freedom for yourself alone, you recognize that true freedom comes through connection with others. The Bodhisattva vow is often expressed in these beautiful words. May I be a guard for those who need protection, a guide for those on the path, a boat, a raft, a bridge for those who wish to cross the flood. May I be a lamp in the darkness, a resting place for the weary, a healing medicine for all who are sick, a vase of plenty, a tree of miracles.
This path also changes your relationship with suffering. If you're only focused on escaping your own pain, suffering remains the enemy. But when you walk the Bodhisattva path, suffering becomes your teacher. It deepens your compassion. It opens your heart to the suffering of others. The Heart Sutra, one of the most essential Buddhist texts, speaks directly to this. Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, practicing deep prajna paramita, clearly saw that all 5 skandhas are empty, thus transforming all suffering and distress. This doesn't mean suffering magically disappears. It means you see its true nature, and it no longer controls you. And I think this message is especially needed in today's world. We're constantly bombarded with messages about personal success, about individual happiness. But the Bodhisattva path reminds us that real fulfillment comes through service and connection. True enlightenment isn't a private achievement. It naturally flows outward to benefit others. As the 14th Dalai Lama says, our prime purpose in this life is to help others, and if you can't help them, at least don't hurt them. Such a simple statement, but it captures the heart of awakened ethics. It's not about reaching some exalted state. It's about how you treat the person standing in front of you right now. But if the Bodhisattva path is about how awakening moves outward, how does it arise in the first place? Slowly, over years, or in a single moment? Throughout Buddhist history, there's been a lively debate about this. Does enlightenment happen gradually or suddenly? Different traditions have strong opinions. In Zen and Chan Buddhism, teachers often emphasize sudden enlightenment, what's called satori, a moment of breakthrough when everything shifts. Zen stories love these dramatic awakenings. Kyogen sweeping the garden when a tile strikes bamboo. Hakuin hearing a temple bell and suddenly realizing the truth. Meanwhile, the Theravada tradition generally teaches a more gradual path. They outline specific stages of insight, moral discipline, concentration, wisdom that unfold step by step. The Visuddhimagga, a classic 5th century Buddhist text, maps out 16 insight stages in sequence. So, which is it? The sudden school or the gradual school? Here's where it gets interesting. Maybe both are true. The 9th century Chan master Zongmi offered a beautiful solution. Enlightenment is sudden, but its expression is gradual. It's like the sun rising. The sun appears suddenly above the horizon, but it takes time for its light to gradually illuminate everything. One moment you're in darkness, then there's light, but it takes time for that light to reach all corners. And this actually matches the experience of many modern practitioners. They describe moments of profound insight followed by years of integration. As one teacher told me, awakening can happen in an instant, but embodying it takes a lifetime. Even in the Buddha's own life, both paths were acknowledged. Some disciples took years to awaken. Others had sudden breakthroughs. In the end, what matters isn't the timeline.
It's the authenticity. The Buddha didn't say, "I am enlightened." He simply said, "I am awake." The journey isn't about becoming something new. It's about waking up to what you already are. Sometimes it happens gradually, like the light filling a room. Other times, like flipping on a light switch. But either way, what matters is seeing clearly. And that's really the heart of it. We've traveled quite a journey together in this video, from the Buddha's awakening under the Bodhi tree to what enlightenment looks like in today's world. So what have we learned? Enlightenment isn't what most people think. It's not about gaining powers. It's not about escaping problems. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about seeing reality clearly, as it is, without the distortions of craving, aversion, and delusion. The great mystery of awakening is this: the external world remains the same, yet everything is transformed. As one teacher put it, enlightenment isn't some cosmic fireworks display. It's simply removing the blinders you never knew you were wearing. Nothing changes, and yet everything is different. If there's one thing to take away from this video, it's this: don't chase enlightenment like another prize. That's just the ego playing a spiritual game. Instead, practice with sincerity. Be present with what arises. Cultivate compassion for yourself and for others. The rest will unfold naturally. Remember, enlightenment isn't hidden in a temple. It's not locked in a secret text. It's not trapped in a technique. It's the silent awareness behind every breath. And the moment you stop searching for it, you'll realize it's already here. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more insights from Buddha's wisdom. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What moments of clarity have you experienced in your own life? What challenges do you face in your practice? And if you'd like to dive deeper, check out our other videos on karma, meditation, and the Four Noble Truths. Until next time, may your path be clear, your heart be open, and your mind be at peace. See you soon.